As the ages wane on, many titans fall. In the video game industry, that titan was Sega. Having existed for over a decade, the company was able to frighten even the biggest of competitors, such as Nintendo. But the times weren't on the company's side. The Sega Saturn, the overly expensive and hard to program successor to the Sega Genesis, was a critical and commercial failure at launch. The newer and better Sony PlayStation and Nintendo 64 had simply blown its competitors out of the water, including Sega themselves. Even while the console had successes, such as the Sakura Wars series and the Sakata Sanshiro commercials, the system simply failed to compete. When Sega revealed its next entry, the Dreamcast, it was assumed that this new console would help them out of the hard times that they were in. It didn't. Several years in, the console was only selling ever so slightly ahead of the Sega Saturn. As 2001 reached its conclusion, the console had all but disappeared from the global market, as old enemies and new competitors joined the fray. Caught in the middle was Red Company and Overworks. Even in these hard times that they were still able to craft compelling experiences that became phenomenons. Because of this, they were left with a difficult choice. Do they leave the dying carcass of the company that had made them what they are today, or do they end it once and for all? Before that question could be answered, something most wonderful happened. After years of hard work in the animation department, from the OVAs to the uber successful TV series, something even greater than those came about. Developed at the famous animation production house, Production IG, a feature-length film, affectionately titled Sakura Wars the Movie, was put into production. While previous adaptations had retold or added on to the story, this time it was something wholly original. Bridging the gap between Sakura Wars 3 and the next entry, the movie would tell the original Hanagumi's exploits while Ogami was busy in Paris, involving an American businessman bent on replacing them with mechas of his own design. Also introduced was Orihime and Rennie's captain in the Star Division, Ratchet Altair, the first American in the series proper. While the story was as fantastic as ever, the animation and sound were as crucial as they have ever been. While the original animation style was a marvel in and of itself, Production IG's work was breathtaking, to say the least. All these factors led the animated movie to become a commercial and critical smash hit, just as the video games had been before it. Success came for one part of the series, but for others, their time was coming to a close. Right after the release of Sakura Wars 3, the Dreamcast was on its last legs. Japan had a love for the console, but even that wasn't saving it from its untimely demise. Sega had already announced they were stepping down from their publisher roots and turning into a software developer, abandoning the Dreamcast for good. The console still had some allure to it, so that gave Red Company time to think. Do they rush the next entry to release and leave the console on a positive note? Or do they abandon it and make a fully fledged fourth entry on their former competitor's PlayStation 2? The teams chose the former this time around. Having only 10 months to complete the project, the team rushed to the finish line. Working day in and day out, Red Company was trying to make something just for their fans. To relate to this, the team chose a poem that was somber, yet very much related to the situation that they were in. It was less about war, and more about the fleeting lives of our heroes. Kosuyo Otome, or Fall in Love Maidens, is a popular line from a 1915 tune called the Gondola Song. The name of the game would be more fitting than one would realize. While previous entries in the franchise had been fully blown sequels, this time it would be something more intimate, something that was more of a fan disc to celebrate the series' legacy. Corners had to be cut. Few new assets were used, and a majority of what had been made for the previous entry and the ports were reused. That is not to say that the story wasn't original. Ogami was once again back with the Taiko Kekkiden, fighting demons and reminiscing of old flames. As this was the final entry in the franchise at the time, you didn't get to exactly choose who you ended up with. This time around, the game's functionality with the previous entries in the franchise was used to great effect. Now Ogami could finally end up with the girls you had chosen from previous games. But a wrench was thrown into this. Reading previous games' save data meant that Sakura Wars 3's data was also brought over, creating a love triangle situation for our hero. Romanticism aside, instead of being told in an episodic format, the game would be told as a play in its own 3-act structure, similar to a play. Surprisingly enough, the story revolved around the famous play Les Miserables. Unsurprisingly, this leads to many mistaken coincidences surrounding the marriage scene. Because this time Ogami has been made director of the play, he has a hard time deciding what to do for the scene, so unfortunately he asks all the girls about marriage, and wacky misunderstandings ensue. But it isn't all fun and games, as an old ghost of Ginza re-emerges that even the Hanagumi can't defeat, causing Tokyo and Paris to team up in a spectacular finale to the series. Sakura Wars 4 Fall in Love Maidens piles on the fan service, but not in the ways you would expect. While the main theme may be about falling in love, it is more about how great of a character Ogami is, and by extension, how great of a person you are. The characters of both the Hanagumis, clearly representing the developers, heap praise and gratitude onto him by the truckloads. Even during the love triangle situations, which ended horribly in the past, depending on who Ogami picks, there's a special scene that clearly resolves the relationship with the other. The reconciliation, combined with how chaste, oblique, and platonic the relationships are anyway, successfully prevents Ogami from looking like a slimy playboy. The culmination of this praise comes with the Sobu, or Dual Warrior, a single overpowered Kobu piloted by Ogami and your hero of choice. This, combined with the shockingly short playtime, nearly 1/3 of previous entries, makes the game seem like sort of a bonus disc, or coda, a thank you and farewell to the series and fans alike. Even with the console's passing as a major competitor, fans still turned out for the final game's release. Selling slightly less than the previous entry at 290,000 copies, it was still a surprising hit for a dying console. Even then, Japan couldn't get enough of the Sakura Wars series. But as the Dreamcast passed on, it was up in the air if the series would survive the transition. As the years move on, many franchises fall by the wayside. Time is a cruel mistress, but it is one that had seemed to leave the Sakura Wars series unaffected. Clad in a multitude of different colors, ethnicities, personalities, and cultures, a story was weaved that could appeal to anyone, translating into various mediums, including the one they portrayed. The series could appeal to gamers and non-gamers alike. After 6 long years, it had seemed that the story had been told in full. But looks can be deceiving. In this brave new world, how long could the series truly last? Tune in next time to see the series try to conquer the world. Well, hello again, my fellow Naganeers, and thanks for watching another episode of Blossom. We've got more coming up, so be sure to stay tuned every other Saturday for a brand new episode. This may seem like the end, but it is only just the beginning. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and Noggins, while also catching up with the series with the playlist, and checking out my exclusive Sakura Wars channel if you'd like to learn more about the series, along with the GIF in the corner for the full walkthrough of Sakura Wars 4. Anyway, that's it for me. Be sure to stay awesome, viewer, and continue the thirst for knowledge.